What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have an absolutely amazing Raikou EX and Galvantula deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually. I'll talk about why this deck is absolutely amazing and you should definitely be checking it out. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Without further ado, let's talk about Raikou and Galvantula. I wanted to come up with a deck that was fun, unique, and had a card that you really don't see a lot, and that's where Galvantula comes into play. It can be a really fun card and really good in the right deck, and combining Galvantula with Raikou EX really puts it in a great spot to succeed and a great spot to really frustrate your opponents. So let's talk about Galvantula first, then I'll get into Raikou EX, because you've probably seen a bunch of Raikou EX decks. It is a phenomenal card. Galvantula, not as much. It's a very good card, but really has to be put in the right circumstance with the right cards. This is a very good way to utilize it. So Galvantula has Electric Shock. For 2 electric energy, deals 70 damage. On top of that, you have to discard all of the energy attached to your Galvantula. However, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So that's pretty fun. You get to deal 70 damage and you're paralyzing your opponent's active Pokemon. So barring any form of card that they may have, or active ability, some ability that another Pokemon has, you're paralyzing your opponent's Pokemon so they cannot retreat, they're stuck in that active slot, and they cannot attack. So that's pretty awesome on top of doing the 70 damage. Galvantula is going to be found in the Eevee Grove packs. Now, of course, to evolve into Galvantula, you're going to need Joltik. For 1 electric energy, you have Jolt, which deals 10 damage, but you also get to flip a coin if heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. This Joltik is going to be found in the Eevee Grove packs as well, but I want you to remember this Jolt move because it's going to come back into play and it's going to be really important for this deck. So just remember Jolt dealing 10 damage, but also having the capability of potentially paralyzing your opponent's active Pokemon. Let's talk about Raikou EX really quickly because it is important to have Raikou EX in this deck. Now, Raikou EX has an ability and a move. The move is Voltaic Bullet. For 2 electric energy, deals 60 damage. It also deals 10 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So that's pretty nice. You get to deal 60 damage as well as 10 damage to a Pokemon on the bench. What's also really nice is Raikou EX's, all of the dogs, all of the legendary dogs have this ability, and it's Legendary Pulse. At the end of your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you draw a card. So that's going to be really nice having Raikou EX in that active slot. You can draw an extra card at the end of each turn, so you can get through the cards in your deck, getting them into your hand, and being able to activate your strategy earlier than your opponent's able to activate his or her strategy. So that's going to be really nice, having that ability, having Raikou EX in that active slot, while you're dealing 60 damage and 10 damage to a bench Pokemon, and you get to be drawing extra cards. Raikou EX is going to be found in the Secluded Springs packs. Now, last but not least, in terms of the Pokemon in this deck, I have Pichu. Pichu has Crackly Toss. So all baby Pokemon, they have a move that does not cost any energy, which is nice. If you do start first, you get to equip an energy or you get to do something with baby Pokemon. In this case, with Pichu, you get to take an electric energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. So if you start, if you are the first turn, you can attach an energy and not fall behind on the 8 ball when it comes to attaching an energy. If you do start second, that means you get to attach an energy from Pichu, and you get the energy from your energy zone. So that's really nice. I love Pichu as a part of this deck, so you can attach some energy to your Pokemon and get the ball rolling that way. Because of course, Galvantula takes 2 energy to attack, Raikou EX takes 2 energy to attack, so Pichu can get the ball rolling for those Pokemon. On top of that, Joltik only has 40 HP, so you may or may not want your Joltik in the active slot, knowing that Joltik isn't the end goal. You want to save Joltik for the Galvantula, while Pichu may be a sacrificial lamb, just so you can build up energy on your Pokemon on the bench. So just be aware that Pichu is a phenomenal card to have, building up electric energy in that active slot, and Pichu is going to be found in the Wisdom of Sea and Sky Lugia packs. Next, I want to talk about Memory Light. Memory Light is going to be insanely important for Galvantula, and it's really going to kickstart Galvantula. It's going to make Galvantula really phenomenal in that active slot. So let's go back to talking about Galvantula and talking about Memory Light. So Galvantula, we already mentioned, 2 electric energy for electric shock, deals 70 damage, and paralyzes your opponent's active Pokemon. However, you lose all of the energy that was initially on Galvantula. Memory Light, what Memory Light does, for those of you who don't know, the Pokemon the card is attached to can use any attack from its previous evolutions. You still need the necessary energy to use each attack. So in the case of Galvantula, and remember I said earlier, remember Jolt from Joltik. So in terms of Galvantula, if it has Memory Light equipped, Galvantula can now attack with Jolt for 1 electric energy, and you have that ability to potentially paralyze your opponent's active Pokemon again. So in terms of Galvantula, we already attacked, we dealt 70 damage, and we paralyzed our opponent's active Pokemon. Our opponent can attack, they're stuck in that active slot. Next turn, if Galvantula has Memory Light equipped, I get to equip an electric energy onto Galvantula. Memory Light is on Galvantula, so I get to utilize Jolt for 1 electric energy. I had to take that electric energy from the energy zone and attach it to Galvantula, but with Memory Light, I now get to attack with Jolt. I deal 10 damage, and I get to flip a coin. If I get heads, my opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed again, so that may be 2 turns in a row that they're paralyzed. If I'm lucky enough to flip for heads, and I do have a way of guaranteeing a heads that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. Y'all already may be familiar with that card, but I'll talk about it in a second. But now that's 2 turns in a row. The 3rd turn, I get to equip another electric energy onto my Galvantula, and I get to hit for 70 and a paralyze again. So I have the potential to hit for 3, 4, 5. I can continue to hit for paralyzes if I'm getting lucky with my coin flips, or if I draw Will, which I'll talk about in a second, one of these supporter cards in the game. But I have the potential to keep my opponent's active Pokemon paralyzed until I'm able to defeat it, which is really awesome, and it's a really nice use of Memory Light and also Will. So let's talk about Will now. And Memory Light is going to be found in the Secluded Springs packs. So Will, for those of you who don't know, the next time you flip any number of coins for the effect of an attack, ability, or trainer card after using this card on this turn, the first coin flip will definitely be heads. So we just mentioned that you flip a coin for Jolt, and if heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. So if I utilize Will on a turn that I'm going to use Jolt, whether I'm using it in conjunction with Joltik or whether I'm using it in conjunction with Galvantula, Will is going to guarantee that I flip for a heads. So in this case, in terms of this deck, I get a paralyze. So if I just attacked with Galvantula, I paralyze my opponent. If I have Memory Light on my Galvantula and I have Will, I get to utilize Will, I get to attack with Jolt, and I get to paralyze my opponent. The next turn, I'll have 2 energy, so I'll get to attack for 70 again and paralyze again. And then if I have another will, I'll be able to hit for Jolt again and paralyze again. So if I do have all of the right cards in my hand, I can guarantee 4 paralyzes in a row, which can almost, not every Pokemon, but can almost guarantee a KO. If you add up the damage, that's 70 from Galvantula on one turn, 10 from the Jolt on one turn, then another 70, then another 10, then another 70. That is 160 damage with your opponent not able to attack you. Most Pokemon do not have more than 160 HP, even when coupled with a giant cape. So that's pretty awesome that you can not only KO a Pokemon, but also not take damage in the process. So that's really awesome once you get Galvantula rolling. Now, of course, that goes back to Raikou EX. Raikou EX, you get to draw a card at the end of your turn as long as Raikou EX is in that active slot. So you can be implementing this strategy. You can build up the wills in your hand. You can build up the memory lights so you can get ready to implement this strategy, which is absolutely awesome. Will can be found in the Wisdom of Sea and Sky Lugia packs. So now let's talk about some more of the cards in this deck. First, some of the basics. Pokeball, 2 Pokeballs, which you put a random basic Pokemon from your hand into your deck. And Professor's Research, you draw 2 cards. Next, I have a couple of cards that I absolutely love in every deck. Sabrina, you get to switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Your opponent does get to choose the new active Pokemon, but this can really mess with your opponent's strategy. You can get the Pokemon in the active slot just out of there because you don't want to deal with them. Perhaps they have a lot of energy built up. Perhaps they have a Rocky Helm that you don't want to deal with. Or perhaps you want to draw out a Pokemon from the bench that has a high retreat cost and get them stuck in that active slot. There are a lot of uses for Sabrina, a very strategic card, but a very phenomenal card. So I do love Sabrina. That can be found in the Genetic Apex Charizard packs. Next, Cyrus, you get to switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it to the active slot. This is a phenomenal card, especially when coupled with Raikou EX, because Raikou can deal damage to a Pokemon on the bench. So if you're hitting a Pokemon on your opponent's bench, you may want to pull that to the active slot. That's where Cyrus is going to come into play. Also, since Raikou EX does not deal a lot of damage, does only deal 60 damage, could give your opponent an opportunity to retreat a Pokemon to the bench that has some damage on it. Cyrus is going to force that Pokemon to the active slot so you can finish that Pokemon off. So another phenomenal card. Both Sabrina and Cyrus are really phenomenal cards and great for the majority of decks. And Cyrus can be found in the Space-Time Smackdown Palkia packs. Last but not least, 2 more cards. I have 1 X-Speed and 1 Elemental Switch. X-Speed is nice because Raikou EX does have a 2 retreat cost. So if I want to retreat Raikou and save at least 1 energy, I can utilize X-Speed, retreat Raikou, and keep 1 energy on Raikou. So that's going to be nice to have. Depending upon what Pokemon I want to retreat, could be Galvantula, or not Galvantula, it could be Joltik. Galvantula does not have a retreat cost. It could be Joltik. Perhaps I started the match with Joltik in the active slot. I have 1 energy on it, and I don't want to waste that energy. I can use X-Speed to retreat Joltik. So X-Speed can be used for either Raikou EX to save an energy on it, or Joltik to save that energy as well. Elemental Switch can be nice because if you do have some energy built up on the bench, you can switch one of those energy on the bench to your Galvantula in the active spot, so you can hit for your Electric Shock 2 turns in a row. So what Elemental Switch does is you move a fire, water, or electric energy, of course in this case electric energy, from one of your benched Pokemon to your active Pokemon. So if you utilized X-Speed on your Raikou EX, you retreated it to the bench, so it has 1 energy left on it. You just utilized your Electric Shock from Galvantula, so you lost all of your electric energy on your Galvantula. You can equip an energy from the energy zone onto your Galvantula. You can utilize that elemental switch from your Raikou EX, take that remaining electric energy from your Raikou EX, move it to your Galvantula, and now you attack for your electric shock 2 turns in a row, so you don't have to worry about memory light, you don't have to worry about flipping a coin for paralysis. You get the 2 paralysis in a row thanks to your elemental switch and having a Pokemon on the bench that has an energy on it. So that's pretty nice as well. If you have some extra energy on the bench, you can utilize elemental switch to your Galvantula so you can hit for a couple of moves in a row that paralyze without having to worry about memory light or will in the process. So that's a really great card to have in this deck, and that's going to be found in the Wisdom of Sea and Sky Lugia packs. This is a really fun deck. I really like this combination of Raikou EX and Galvantula. Galvantula can be a great card when you put it in the right deck, as I mentioned earlier. Elemental Switch is great for Galvantula because if you have an extra energy on the bench that you're not using, you can hit with Galvantula's Electric Shock 2 moves in a row. You hit the first turn, lose all your energy, then your next turn you can utilize Elemental Switch and the energy from the energy zone to attack again. If you don't have that option, you do have the Memory Light option, so you can hit with Jolt and potentially paralyze if you don't have will. If you do have will, you can guarantee that head on the coin flip to paralyze 2 turns in a row and then 3 turns in a row, which is really awesome. Raikou EX is just a great card in general, not just for this deck, but for a lot of electric decks, especially because you can utilize Legendary Pulse to build up cards in your hand, and you can hit an opponent on the bench, allowing for a move such as Cyrus to bring that Pokemon out into the active slot so you can finish it off, or at least get that Pokemon into the active slot if your opponent doesn't want that Pokemon there. So it's really nice. I love this deck, but let me know in the comment section what you think about this deck. Is this a deck you're going to check out? Is this something you've already checked out? And have you enjoyed it as much as I have? I love Galvantula. I love electric Pokemon in general. So I really do love this deck. Galvantula is a fun Pokemon, so it was nice to find a deck that really works for it. And Raikou EX, as I mentioned, is just a phenomenal, very versatile card when it comes to electric decks. If you did build this deck or are going to build this deck, what are some substitutions you'd make? What are cards that you'd take out and what are cards that you'd put in? I'd love to know. I know a lot of people, when they see an electric deck, automatically think putting Oricorio in there. I did skip on the Oricorio in terms of this deck, but of course you can sub one in depending upon what card you want to take out. But Oricorio is always welcome since it doesn't take damage from EX Pokemon. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, again, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. Thanks for sticking around, and until next time, peace.